Howdy, ho ho, my good humans. We are gathered here today. It is so crazy, dude. We are gathered here today.
This got very like I don't know. This got something real quick. All right, sorry. Now it's all derailed. Go ahead.
Welcome to the church the church of the unnecessary rambling. We are gathered here today to it's crazy, dude. We're halfway through the generation. Um, I mean, if it's to be believed that the generation's going to end in 2028, I mean, we're maybe more than halfway through the generation for Xbox. They're talking about announcing a console in 2026 potentially. So, whew. But Jeffrey, appreciate you for joining me here today, man.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here as always, man. Thanks for having me. It's just fun to talk about video games and it's I feel old for a lot of reasons, but I feel really old thinking about that we're technically if we're calling that halfway through, like maybe that's going to be reflective in our conversation, but it doesn't feel like it. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but
Yeah.
man, I feel like we're aging way too quickly because of this stuff. Like generations, I feel like when you think of PlayStation 2 and, Xbox and GameCube and all those, like generations, like they felt so solidified,
Yeah.
right?
Well, dude, and think
Oh,
about this. The PlayStation 2 came out in what, 2000? And then the PS3 came out in 2006, I think.
I think so,
2000,
yeah.
2005, 2006. So we're already like we're past the point of what a mid-gen life cycle would be for the sixth generation and fifth generation. I mean, we at this point we're like a year away from the PS2 being not over. The PS2 went on forever, but from going from PS2 to PS3, it's just absolutely crazy. So what we're here today to do is give out our report card for our consoles. Jeffrey, we both own a PS5, a Series X, and you do you also own a Series S, or have you owned a Series S at some point?
Yeah, I got the Series S first when that's what I could afford, and then the Series X when they became more available, just to make things a little better. So yeah, I have both. But yeah, I think we got the same things with the more next gen, if whatever you want to call them, next gen
Right.
things. Yeah.
And I don't really want to look at this, and we can look at it however we want to. Like you can obviously have your own score and system, and I'm not so much from my angle looking at this as a I'm not specifically grading just the console because the consoles are great. Like they perform great. They're as powerful as they need to be. And I don't need, PC Ultra. That's not what you're looking for with a console experience. And
Right.
for what the power that they're providing for me, like they're both damn near equal. And like, so I don't get into the Digital Foundry, like breaking down the smallest details. I'm really all about the games. I'm all about that side of things. And so I just want to kick it off there. Which console do you want to grade first when we jump into this?
Let's start with the Xbox side of things. I know Xbox tends to get the bad rap, nowadays, but both of us, I think I can speak for both of us. We both love our Xboxes for different reasons, like we're not here for console wars, we're not here for any of that stuff. It's just to talk about we wouldn't buy them and have them both. We didn't love both in their own distinct ways. So let's start with the Xbox side of things, only because I feel like that tends to get the bad rap for whatever reason. But yeah, let's jump in there first.
Well, let's do it like this. How
Yeah.
about you hit me with your grade out the gate, and we'll get to the grade and then explain the grade from there. And then maybe
Yeah.
after we explain it, we'll see maybe, we'll re-examine the grade, see if there's something we feel like after the conversation, I'll bump it up or I'll bump it down.
And then I'll get detention, go to the principal's office. So yeah, with our bad report card now. So I think overall, out of the gate, I'm gonna go with an Xbox with I'm gonna go with a C plus.
Oh wow, okay.
Kind of where I come in, at that. Again, but people I think when they hear a C or they hear a seven, people think bad, right? We only think of like eights and nines is good, but you have to remember a C is average. I got C's in a lot of school and I was happy with that. I'm average. I'm just very good at being average.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give Xbox like kind of a C plus, yeah, so I'm just going to throw that out there first. I don't know if you want to give yours and then we go from there, but that's kind of where I'm going to lean into right now.
Yeah, we'll do that. I'll give mine because I was actually saying wow as I'm surprised how high because
Hmm,
my grade is actually going to be a D plus.
interesting.
Um, I think that and we'll break down the conversation just bit by bit. I think Xbox has a very weird problem this generation where it's no longer the issue of they don't have games. They have so many games. Their first party output in 2024 was really solid. Their first party output in 2025 is looking insane. Avowed and Outer Worlds 2 and Fable and you could South of Midnight, and then on the horizon you have your Perfect Darks and your Clockwork Revolutions, and you can go on and on. The Doom is coming out next year. But see, that's where we get into the problem.
Hmm.
Because Doom next year is coming out for PS5. Indiana Jones next year is releasing on PS5. There's rumor that pretty much all of these games are going multi-platform at some point. And I think that's why I would personally say a D plus. It's the optics of this thing. It is so hard. Like Jeffrey, be honest with me. If someone came to you right now and said, "Hey, I have my 500 bucks. I'm looking to buy either a PS5 or a Series X or maybe hold off for a Switch 2 or get a Steam or whatever." Would you ever tell anybody to pick up a Series X?
Oh, I don't see. I think you might be shooting for an answer here, like a specific, like, oh no, of course not, get a PS5. But to be honest with you, I don't know if I can give that cut and dry of an answer because while I do love my PS5, we'll get into that. For me, the again, I'm not a fanboy of one or the other. I like them all, but like for me, it's the Game Pass thing. I'm sorry, like I know games are going to come to other places and I get that's frustrating like as an Xbox person. If you okay, so we can just say we're fortunate or blessed to be able to have all these consoles. I get not everyone can. I fully understand. If you can have one console, you're going to be hurt and sad like if you spent this ecosystem money and you don't get these games just to your console. Of course that's a bummer. Obviously, that's why Nintendo does so well because they have their games just on their console. But if we're kind of pulling back that curtain on it and we're saying you can play all of these big games that you had just mentioned without spending any more than your 18 bucks or whatever a month for the Game Pass Ultimate, whatever it is, 20 bucks or whatever. I'm sorry, that's incredibly good value. And the fact that I can load up Indiana Jones from December or I can load up Avowed when it comes out, in the next couple months, and I don't even have to think about dropping that 60, 70 bucks on PlayStation or somewhere else. This is my long-winded answer, but I don't think I can say get a PS5 over an Xbox based on what you had said.
But could you say get a Steam Deck where you can, or a ROG Ally where you can also access?
No, because you have to remember those on paper and in theory sound great, but you're still accessing a PC. They're still a PC. Even while the Steam Deck is probably the most like a console, everything I've still heard and read, as much as I want a Steam Deck, you still have to have some intuitiveness of a PC to run things how you want. You still have to fiddle with settings to get it how you want. Not every game's going to run the same as you think it'll run. So if you think of $1,000 ROG Ally or even a $600 Steam Deck, while they're great for what they are, they're still PCs. You still have to to tinker with everything to make it exactly what you want. Whereas you load in a game on Game Pass or on PlayStation 5, you just play the game, again, generally speaking. So I know you were looking for like an answer to say don't get an Xbox. This is what I'm guessing, but I don't think
No.
I could say that because Game Pass for me it makes it way too easy to enjoy all these games without the risk.
Yeah, no, I'm looking for your answer specifically. Like whatever your answer is the answer I'm looking for. And I think you make a lot of great points. And I also think you look at the price difference for a Series X versus a ROG Ally or a Steam Deck or obviously a PC. It's like, yeah, you're going I think if you're in the market to save some cash, which I think most people should be in that market, then the Series X is a really good option. But also you have to consider that that is $140 a year. And
Right.
so if you need to look at it and say, am I getting $140 worth of value out of this a year? Because you can get a lot of those games that are on Game Pass on $2, $3 sales at
True.
certain points of the year. And you might be able to actually save more just buying the games on sale. And then it goes to what are you getting day one? And
Right.
are you getting enough on offer day one to justify that price? And for me and you, we are. We're getting a ton from those day one from the indies, but that's the thing. We love indies,
Right.
we
Right.
love
Right.
double A, and we get a lot of that. But in terms of triple A, I think next year is really where you're going to see I mean, a crazy amount of triple A. Their first party is really hitting on all cylinders next year. And I would
Right.
say it even did in 2024. But we also have to look at the early part of this generation for Xbox. It was slow, man. It
Yeah.
was really slow. You had that great year with Halo Infinite, Forza Horizon 5, but then you had like 2022 where we weren't playing anything on
Right.
Xbox. It was Pentiment and Grounded, I think were the only two like quote unquote big first party games. Um, and not that big either.
Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm looking at it the perspective of you and I do play such a variety. We've heard enough in the comments of like our games from last year, between both of us, and of course with Loon as well, the games he plays. We've all played enough variety of games. Whereas, you know what? Maybe I need to step back from that and look at it where there are people that just play the big hitters, right?
Yeah.
That's which I know we'll get on the PlayStation, but there are the people that just want to play your Halos, your Call of Duties, your Indiana Jones that just came out, like, and that's it. They don't care about indies, they don't care about the small $5 game, and that's completely fine. Where you and I do love to try out every type of experience, big, small, otherwise. So to that point, you're right. I think this is why I don't give Xbox, although a C plus is still maybe a little high, I don't give it higher because there hasn't been, apart from Game Pass, there hasn't been a solid reason in my opinion. Like it's a great console and the controller and all that, but there hasn't been a good reason. I'm keeping that a little bit higher only because from my perspective, there's enough games to at least play, even if it's not exactly what you want to play. But those past years have been meager. You're right. It's really only up until last year and this year where we're starting to say, okay, Xbox, even if those games do come to PlayStation, they're still going to be day and date on Game Pass. So you don't have to have that $70 investment. But it's of course a shame to say that they're going to come somewhere else because it's like, why would I just not buy the other thing? Especially if Game Pass one day comes to like PlayStation like they want to do, right? Microsoft wants to put it everywhere, put it on your TV, your fridge, your cat, your whatever it is. You know what I mean? So,
And I think that kind of goes back. And I think that if I'm looking at for my because I'm grading this a little bit on like a report card of how have you done overall, not just how I feel about your system personally. Because if it's for me personally, just that, I want to be clear. Indiana Jones is my game of the year in 2024. Starfield
right,
was like my third favorite game of 2023. Hi-Fi Rush was in my top 10. Like I have loved their output of games.
yeah,
And that's the first time I can say that about Xbox in a long time. Like they're really putting out great games. Um, but I when I'm looking at it and I'm kind of looking at my grade and everybody's grading system, their curriculum's going to be a little bit different. I'm looking at it going, my grade is based on who I would recommend this to
Hmm,
if I would recommend this to anybody. And a D plus for me is like I would recommend this to very few people.
gotcha.
But with all that being said, I know that sounds very negative. I'm not positive on this generation across the board. I think the
Right,
third parties are excellent. I think console manufacturers have just totally sucked this generation. I think that once again the consoles are great, but in terms of the marketing, in terms of getting people into the ecosystem, in terms of selling this thing, I think both companies have sucked. Um,
right.
Once again, I'm not one of those guys that doom and gloom and say, oh, gaming's in an awful state. Gaming is in a great state in many, many regards, but it's the third parties that are mostly
Right.
carrying the weight right now. So let's dive into PlayStation.
Sure. Well, let's have you go first on this then. I want to, because I know PlayStation is I feel like the general conversation around PlayStation generally seems to be higher, even though they've had more lackluster years in terms of their first party output. So where are you going to give their overall grade as far as PlayStation 5?
A C minus. I'm going to go
Wow.
one little point above Xbox, and it's for their third party, the money hatting. Like I hate to reward that, but it is what it is.
All right.
You're good.
Apologies.
No, you're fine, brother.
Apologies to all the listeners out there. I got too excited about Brandon C minus that I decided to throw my things out in solidarity there. So apologies. All right.
You're
Yeah.
good, man. It to me, it's the third party money hatting. It's the deals that they're making that have carried the PS5
Yeah.
this generation. And also, talking about the Series S for a second,
Oh
if it
yeah.
is
We didn't touch on that for Xbox, did we? We didn't even touch on that part of it because that is a huge part of it. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, well, we can actually touch on it right here because I think it honestly makes more sense in PlayStation's favor. As weird as that
Yeah.
sounds, because Baldur's Gate 3 was a PlayStation 5 exclusive in 2023. That's crazy to say because of the Series S. Black Myth Wukong is a PlayStation 5 exclusive in 2024
Yep.
because of the Series S.
Right.
Remedy has talked about having issues working with the Series S. The developer of the Dune game talked about the issues they had with the Series S. The Series S is causing a lot of issues, and maybe sure it might not cause issues for Rockstar or teams that can throw 1,000 people at a problem, but it's causing issues, no
Yeah.
doubt. And that kind of leads into that whole third party thing where you the third party money hatting deals, and maybe Black Myth Wukong is a third party money hatted. I have no idea. There's speculation on both sides of the developer has kind of come out blatantly and said no, this is a Series S problem, but people still believe that it's a a paid timed exclusive, which it could be. I have no idea about the
Yeah.
behind the scenes workings. Um, but I think when you look at Rebirth, Silent Hill 2, a Black Myth Wukong, let's say that was a money hatted deal. And then you look at your Stellar Blades and your Rise of the Ronins, and you go on and on with the third party deals that they're striking. Your Stray and Roller Drome, and like they're making smart plays across the board with what to lock down as exclusives. And that's the thing when we're talking about looking at this console, it still feels to me like PlayStation values their console.
Yeah.
And we'll leave it there with the third party because then let's get into first party after, and it's a totally different discussion.
Yeah, I think that's I think that all makes a lot of sense. You know, and this is why I like these conversations in general because we tend to look at just like our game of the year ranking videos, ours were different, right? With the way we looked at S tier. You know, you looked at one as like here's the pinnacle one that you played, Indiana Jones, and where I had, you know, a handful of S games. So I think we look at these things differently. Maybe I need to take out some of my own bias or my own like, you know, because I like the way you try to look at these things a little bit more with bigger optics. But I'm going to go with PlayStation as a B minus. And again, I tend to give a little bit more leniency to a lot of things. With PlayStation specifically, you know, I get more excited to play PlayStation, if that makes sense. That sounds silly, but I guess this is where I'm looking at this kind of conversation from is which one do I get more excited to play and talk about? And it's PlayStation for the reasons that you said. I don't want to jump too much into the first party if we're going to get into it, but it does, of course, obviously come down to those first party games. I don't care about a lot of the first party games, to be honest. But it's just knowing that, like, if I'm getting a PlayStation, there's going to be enough games that I know aren't going to be anywhere else. And that provides that level of like, okay, I'm in an ecosystem where you're only going to get experiences there. You're going to have a lot of the same third party. You're going to have a lot of the same online features. Both offer their own, you know, Game Pass style things and free games a month, whatever you're paying for it. But which system do you get excited to actually jump in and play more? And for me, that's the PS5, which is why it gets a little bit higher of the grade. But where do you want to go with the first party stuff? Because I'm curious what your kind of thoughts are on that. Because I think mine's mostly going to rely more on the first party stuff.
It's been putrid. It's been
Hmm.
absolutely god awful, in my opinion. I mean, and it's not to say you've had good games. You've had God of War Ragnarok and Forbidden West and Rift Apart and Spider-Man 2. You've had it's not to say that there haven't been good games. I should say because the last generation was all about the mismanagement with Xbox and
Yeah.
how they could not seem to get a handle on getting games out the door, especially towards the later part of the generation. Early, they started they out the gate, Sunset Overdrive and Quantum Break and the like Tomb Raider, like they were loaded, in which not first party, but they were loaded with exclusives, and then they just
Well, but those weren't heavy hitters though. People, those still weren't really like hot sellers. That's the problem though.
well, yeah, but once again, I think it's the optic problem. It's the optical
Right.
problem that Xbox constantly, they can't seem to get an optical win where they had good games out the gate with the Xbox One, but PlayStation immediately killed that whole generation with that E3 moment of the
Yeah.
sharing, this is how you share games, and with
Yeah.
Xbox wanting to make it this big media center opposed to being an actual console. And you can go back to Don Matrick and that and throw a lot of stones his way, but it's not like the optical problems are gone now with
No.
Phil Spencer and crew. It's still now instead of that moment, you have the podcast roundtable thing where they're talking about, well, it's only 4 games that are going to PlayStation. And now we know that it's pretty
Right.
much every game going to PlayStation. It's these optical problems that they cannot solve. And I think a lot of this does come down to Microsoft just being like, hey, we're locking down. We just spent $70 billion on Activision and Blizzard and Activision Blizzard King. We're putting our games everywhere to make that money back. I get that,
Right.
but it's still an optical problem, and it's one that is at this point I think it's a hurdle you might not ever be able to get over if you want this system to sell because it's just not. And
Right.
But to go back to compare that to PlayStation, it's crazy because Xbox's first party output d- dog walks PlayStation's this generation. Like
Yeah.
absolute. Well, I should say, and it's always the thing of looking at the future with Xbox. I know next year is going to be the year, but it really does look like 2025 is just insane for them. And I would say even first party versus first party have both been relatively. I don't think Xbox has made the mistakes that PlayStation has this generation. Like the first party
Hmm.
mismanagement with PlayStation seems severe this generation.
You
Blowing
think?
blowing $400 million on a Concord.
Yeah, but I feel like real quick, just because I want to like, I feel like you've kind of blown past, because again, I think these conversations are fun. We can have a devil's advocate to a point, but like a lot of these games that I feel like you've blown past of not being either big ones, maybe they're just not for you, but things like Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, that's one of my favorite games of all time. Marvel's Spider-Man 2. I'm not a superhero person at all. I could care less about anything superhero. I adored Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Silent Hill 2, with that from a more recent example, yes, that's supposed to come to Xbox one day, but still is something like that. You got games like Astrobot, which was my game of the year. And again, I know these are all personal tastes, but like to me, these all seem like massive wins. So I guess I'm just trying to understand from your point of view, what do you consider to be what do you see that makes it so it's, not a stellar number of years for first party releases? Like what would you rather be seeing? I understand the whole thing with Concord and moving into live service. I 1,000% agree. That was an abysmal move from Jim Ryan or whatever and his team. But like there's been a substantial number of games, even if they are just timed. Again, Final Fantasy Rebirth, you love that game. That's timed, I get it, but that's still a PS5 game when you think about it at the moment.
Well, I think it would be this is that when you look at and we might just come into a situation towards the tail end of the PS5 generation, similar to the PS4, when you add God of War 2018, Spider-Man in 2018, and you start lining up heavy hitters that are coming back to back to back, and Tsushima and The Last of Us both in 2020. And maybe it is that situation where we just
Hmm,
start lining up heavy hitters towards the end of the generation that we don't know about yet. It just does not feel like that right now.
hmm,
It doesn't feel
interesting.
like we're lining up those heavy hitters for the tail end of this generation, but their marketing windows have shortened it. Here's my thing.
Hmm.
2024 we had Concord and Astro. Those were our first party titles.
I
2020
mean, Rebirth. I know it's not first, but I guess that's a good point. You're right. That's not first party. I'm just thinking of exclusive, but that is different than first party. So no, you're right. I'm looking at it in a different way, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, specifically for because
Yeah.
like I said, the reason I gave them the edge for the report card is for the third
Third
party
party.
deals. Yeah, my thing is there's some serious there. Maybe it was the Jim Ryan thing, and maybe a lot of that's getting cleaned up. But whenever you look at what they did to Naughty Dog, put them on factions and then canceled the damn game.
Yeah.
They closed down Sony London. Firewalk has been shuttered. Um, there's been so many games canceled and layoffs which Microsoft has had a ton of layoffs too. But I'm just talking about the mismanaging of their first party studios. It
Right.
feels more severe for PlayStation this generation than it does with Xbox. For me personally,
Hmm. Interesting.
and
Okay.
because with the Xbox lineup, we see what's coming. The roadmap is there, and they've already been releasing games pretty consistently. It doesn't feel like Redfall is kind of the only example, and that was already in the work before Microsoft ever acquired Bethesda.
Right.
Because Bethesda put down the iron fist and was like, "Hey, you guys aren't Prey didn't sell any copies. You got to do something that sells some copies." And
Right.
so they go the live service direction. Um, but it used to be we were always getting like two, three first party games every year in the PS4 generation. And it's dry in that regard. The
Hmm.
first party heavy hitters aren't I love those games. I love Spider-Man 2. I love Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. God of War Ragnarok is really solid. Horizon Forbidden West was my game of the year in 2022. Like I
Hmm.
love a lot of those games. But there just seems to be like some real mismanagement going on in the first party division and it's all the live service stuff because you can't forget Concord's not a one and done. That is going to happen to Fair Games. Like
Yeah.
I
Oh
promise
yeah.
it is.
And probably to what's the marathon, right? Isn't the marathon the other one coming from Bungie,
Yeah,
right? That's probably gonna be a similar thing, right?
I'll give Bungie a little credit because they do have that pedigree of like, yeah, they made Destiny, they made Halo, like those guys have some talent over there. But
Right.
I'm not banking on it being a huge hit either. No.
Right. And it's almost like Sony, I know they're trying to get away from that Jim Ryan era, but it is almost like they have to just get these games out the door because they have these things now. But it's like a live service game, which is hard because a live service game can't just be a get it out the door, right? As we've seen with Concord, things like that. It's because they have to be supported for years to come. So, yeah, I can see what you're saying about the mismanagement. I think in my mind, I tend to get so confused, and this is my problem with like exclusivity versus first party, even though logically I understand the difference, but I tend to get so confused with how that works. But I mean, I think the bottom line is both sides have clearly not had the success of past years that we've seen, where you look at the Xbox 360 era or you look at the PS4 era for PlayStation, you look at these eras where it was one after the other, as you're saying. Overall, yeah, I mean, both have clearly not shown. Honestly, I think to answer your question from a long time ago, I think it's almost hard to recommend to buy to anybody either at this current moment, right?
That's
Especially
what I
when
was
you
going to get
toss in
to.
some like a PS5 Pro. It's like that's just useless. There's no reason to have a PS5 Pro. So it's like in general, it almost feels like, well, should you spend the money on any of this right now?
Yep, that's exactly where I was going. That is 100% that
Get a
was my
Switch
conclusion. Yeah, wait for that Switch too. Wait for
or
that
get a
Switch
Steam
too.
Deck.
1000%. I would well, here's the thing, Jeffrey, is that I I'm looking at these two consoles and grading off of what I think those companies are doing themselves specifically to
Yeah,
make you buy the console. As a console, if you just want to have a console experience, you're looking at Baldur's Gate 3, you're looking at Elden Ring, you're looking at NCAA Football 2025, you're looking at GTA 6, NCAA Football 2025, the best-selling game of the year. It's not on PC. GTA 6 will not be on PC.
no, true.
Like there are still heavy hitter games that are not going to come to PC. So there is value in owning a PlayStation or owning an Xbox. The value just doesn't come from PlayStation or Xbox. It
Yeah,
comes from the third parties out there. And you know, Star Wars Jedi Survivor and your Metaphor Refantasios and I mean, you can go on and on and on with all the great third party games that have come out this generation. And I love stuff like Dragon's Dogma 2 and now
hmm
that Cyberpunk is actually functional. There are I mean, there's Hogwarts Legacy. There are
yeah,
so Space Marine 2, Black Myth Wukong. Like you could go on, which that kind of is in a weird state, but you could
yeah,
go on and on and on and on with the amount of games that you have for the third parties. These consoles are worth buying for the third parties if you don't want to tinker with a PC and if they
right.
can't run on a Switch 2 or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I don't think either of these companies have done a good job whatsoever of selling us this thing.
Yeah, no, you know what? It's funny to go back to what you said at the very beginning of this is our minds going to change based on what we said is I knew going into this, you're going to have a lot more robust conversations of how to talk about this. I know looking at my notes, I was like, this is going to be a struggle for me to like talk about succinctly because I get such blinders because I just look at what I play and like what I like to play. And here's why I like this stuff, which is a very not good way to look at this. I should look at it from that broader perspective like you do. So hearing all of your good thoughts on both sides of this, the business side, the third party side, I've actually mentally adjusted down my scores, which is interesting because I didn't think about some of these factors. So like my Xbox score is going to go down to a C minus and my PlayStation score is going to a C plus because I think I brought them both down. Hearing what you've said, that the fact is, if you're a gamer that wants to try a bunch of different experiences, you really can't go wrong with either,
Exactly.
right? Especially
Totally.
if you toss in like all those games you mentioned, but then if you even toss in wanting to try indie games, you can get that anywhere pretty much, right? So like I think it made me realize during this conversation, which is fun, you're not going to go wrong with either, but you also
No.
don't need either for very specific reasons is kind of what you're saying. And I didn't think about that because I looked at it from just that like blinded, mindset.
Well, and to further your point, God of War Ragnarok's on PS4. Horizon Forbidden West is on
Yep.
PS4. Like a lot of those games are PS4 and they run fine on the PS4. And like,
Yeah.
so it's even more to the point of it's hard to sell. They're not doing a great job of selling these things and they're expensive investments. But yeah, you're not going to go wrong picking up a PS5 to play Grand Theft Auto 6. Like, yeah, everybody in the world is going to run out and grab one of these things to play a game like a GTA 6 or to play one of these your Call of Duties and stuff like that, even though they come out on last gen systems. But whenever they eventually leave that behind, if they ever do, um, yeah, you're gonna want to get one of these things. And I guess that's sort of the conversation of which we would but I think you actually made a really good point in yours that I didn't fully think about either is that if you lock in with Game Pass and you keep that as your only way to play video games, you're talking about $20 a month that would get you access to limitless titles and constantly dropping new stuff, adding new stuff in, opposed to, yeah, you're paying $70. PlayStation isn't going out there. They got them a Roller Drome, they got them a Stray, they got Shadow Warrior 3. Um, I can't hardly think of anything outside of those games that they've had on
Mm-mm.
PlayStation Plus day one.
They had the Harry Potter Quidditch champions, yeah. But the point is, you're right. There's not much. You have to really, really try to think. Animal well, I guess, but yeah, you really overall have to try to think of very specific reasons because that's very rare for them to have those day and date, and they're not going to be the heavy hitters. PlayStation's already come out, at least as of currently the time recording this, said that they're not going to put their big heavy hitters on the PlayStation Plus thing. They're just not because that doesn't make sense business wise for them. Maybe that'll change one day. Who knows? But like right now, you're right. You're still going to have to spend your monthly fee for PlayStation Plus and then spend $70 for the new XYZ first party title, right?
Yeah, and nor should
Yeah.
they, nor should
Right.
they put them there because it's been proven at this point. I think I, I'll just say without a doubt, in my opinion, I think it's a proven fact that the subscription business in gaming is not going anywhere.
No.
It's not increasing. Call of Duty is sitting over there on that Game Pass and it jumped a little, but they were talking about, hey, we need 100 million subscribers by 2026 or whatever.
Hmm.
You're at 30, buddy.
Right.
It's not happening. And so like, but that's the thing, Jeffrey. While it's there, it's the best deal in gaming by a mile. And I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I hope it doesn't go anywhere because I love Game Pass. I absolutely adore that thing. I'll be playing Avowed on Game Pass. I played Indiana Jones on Game Pass. I'll be playing um Citizen Sleeper 2 on Game Pass. Like, and that's the thing, you and I love that stuff. We're always down to jump into a Dungeons of Hinterberg or a Citizen Sleeper or whatever weird thing that they throw over there. A lot
Yeah.
of other people are like, "Hey dude, where is Black Myth Wukong? Where is
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate 3? Where is those, um it's it's a tough generation to score. It really is
It
because
is.
I don't think either has done a real great job, and I think that makes the conversation kind of sour and seem like we're super negative about everything. But you go look at my game of the year ranking, go look at your game of the year ranking. Like we're playing so many games, but we love video
Right.
games. But I'm very disappointed in both of these console manufacturers for sure. I think they've done a terrible job of selling these things.
Yeah, no, you're 1,000% right, and that's not even including in the PS5 Pro, which was just a huge unnecessary thing. And again, you look at we're not talking about Nintendo, but if you look at Nintendo, they've just been trotting along since 2017 with the Switch, selling hand over fist of consoles, and they still just prove that point. As much as we love Game Pass, PlayStation Plus to try out games, they still prove that point that games, exclusives, first party specifically, but exclusives sell consoles. So as much as we
Yep.
love Game Pass, Nintendo still is selling their consoles based on their Marios and their Zeldas. If those came to another console, if you could play Mario right now on PlayStation, yeah, most people would probably still want to play it on Nintendo because there's that, to your word, synergy.
Synergy.
But you know what I mean? Like that's the point. It still does do that. I would say my biggest takeaway is just before you, sorry to cut what you're going to say, it's just if you're thinking about what to buy, if you don't have the kind of dispendable income, which not that we do either necessarily, but if you're thinking about a console to buy, just look at your budget and say, are you going to be the kind of gamer that's willing to play a million types of experiences? Or do you only want to play very specific singular experiences once or twice a year? Neither answer is wrong. They're both good. But look at it from that angle, right?
Yep.
Or at least let that be part of your research is which console of these two are going to give you more bang for your buck based on that they're just not giving you a reason to buy them.
And I think that I could take what you said there and almost tie PlayStation and Xbox at the end of
Yeah.
this because it is like I do think that maybe even for me personally, there's a factor where I might even prefer Xbox because of the unique experience on offer. Although, once again, when we're looking personally, Xbox has done a horrible job with their physical media output, where
Yeah.
the discs are coasters. So as a physical media fan, that sucks. But that's really neither here nor there. Um, I'm spending way more money on PlayStation than I am on Xbox, and I'm probably playing more Xbox games. So
Interesting.
like that's definitely to the benefit of Xbox. But why I think I would stay with my score is because I don't feel like PlayStation is actively trying to kill their console in the
Yeah.
same way that Xbox is. Like this is an Xbox, that is an Xbox. I get it. That's what you have to do right now, but that's what you have to do right now because of everything you've done before.
Right.
It wouldn't be this way if Satya Nadella and those the big money guys, if they would have gave Xbox a little bit more time to
Hmm.
roll out the Indiana Jones without letting people know it's coming to PS5, to roll out Outer Worlds 2 without people knowing it's coming to PS5, to roll out Doom without people knowing it's coming to PS5, that user base would have grown. And you can't tell me it wouldn't have because the
Yep.
Switch 2 is about to come out and it's going to sell gangbusters. The Steam Deck is a handheld device that you can go and buy. And if you say, okay, well, you can't buy it in stores, the ROG Ally is a handheld device that you can buy in stores. Steam Deck is sold like less than 5 million units. The
Right.
Switch 2 will sell that in a matter of hours.
Yep.
It's it's the first party, it's the exclusive games that sell these things.
Yep.
It's not going to change. It's not.
The last thing I'll say to that, which is exactly you hit the nail on the head with Xbox, is that if they would have been given the leeway, because I do think this is Microsoft more so than
Yeah.
Xbox, right? Like because of how much money they spend, the $70 billion. If they would have given 2025 to let all of these huge games that aren't exclusive now, or at least they're timed exclusives, to just come out. By the end of 2025, we could have been having a whole different conversation. Xbox could have sold another 20, 30 million. Yeah, that wouldn't match maybe PlayStation or Switch or whatever, but like you're right. That would have completely shifted the game, especially with like a Fable or whatever. But we can't base it on that because that's not what happened. People know now. Why I can just wait a few more months and I don't need to get an Xbox. I can just wait and play it on my PlayStation. Even if it's not on Game Pass, I already have the console. So it is interesting how that little bit of time frame could have shifted everything for them if exactly as you said they gave them the time. But
Right. And well, it's like you got to think as well. The 360 outperformed the PS3 for the majority of that console generation. And then Uncharted, Uncharted 2, Infamous, Infamous 2. Then you get The Last of Us.
yep,
At the end of the console generation for the PS3, the PS3 ends up climbing back up. It's and even if it wouldn't sell, even if it wouldn't be comparable to a PS5 or whatever, if you sold 10 million of those things in a year based off of those exclusive experiences that you could only get on the Series X, like that's a win because then you're
yep.
getting 30% or you're getting 30% rip of every single purchase made on that platform from that point forward. Like I don't know. I I was gonna say I hope I'm proven wrong with my theory, but I kind of don't because I kind of like the model that we have now, where each company is fighting for you to have unique experiences on their platform that they're
Yeah.
paying for and creating. Like that's something that gets lost in all this is people like exclusives are bad. More people need to play more games everywhere, and it's like these companies oftentimes are paying hundreds of millions of dollars for us to get cool ass experiences so that they can sell their system to us and so that like th- that's a good thing. We're we're ensuring that creativity and we're ensuring that these damn talented developers are getting paid damn good money to make damn good games. Like, I don't know.
And that's a fantastic, I think, almost final summation point is that at the end of the day, these companies aren't your friend. They're not your
No.
buddy as much as their marketing may seem it. Like we love games, we like to play everything. This isn't us being negative on it, but at the end of the day, they're a business to make money. As a business needs to prove why you should spend your hard-earned money, you right there who's watching, your hard-earned money from your job or whatever it is, to buy their thing. And the creativity point, I think, is exactly the biggest port that you said, because you look back at the days of, again, I keep harping, the PlayStation 2, Xbox, GameCube. Those were some of the best years where publishers and developers took risks. And some of those games, of course, were multi-platform, but you saw more risk taken, to your point, Brandon, is because they had to give you a reason to say, buy our console because we can offer you XYZ experiences. And we've lost a lot of that with having parity across all systems, except for Nintendo, who does their own thing, which is great. But that's exactly it. If we want to see more creativity, there needs to be competition, healthy competition, yes, but there needs to be that competitive atmosphere to prove. Again, they're not your friend. They want to make money. So if we want to continue to have creative games and people are saying it's all dried up, why do you think indies are thriving? Indies are thriving because that's where the creativity is, because they're having to prove themselves and find a space somewhere in the gaming market. If
Yeah.
we could get that at the top of all this AAA, we could go back to those glory days, which weren't perfect, but we could go back to those glory days.
Right. And well, to put a final button on this, why do you think Concord exists? Why do you think Fair Games exists? It's because they're, well, for sure they're chasing the live service dollar, but why are they even comfortable enough to chase the live service dollar? Because there's no competition in the console market for PlayStation. And whenever you don't have, try it. Try it with the 360. Try it. PlayStation, Sony wouldn't have survived that generation if instead of Infamous 2 and Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3 and The Last of Us, it was Concord and Fair Games. And Xbox is like, hey, come play Mass Effect and Mass Effect 2 and BioShock and come play Oblivion and come play. And they're just loading you with these heavy hitter experiences. It's like, yeah. And that's where like the home of Call of Duty was. Grand Theft Auto 4 run better there. Like, yeah, it's. Anywho,
Yeah.
this is something I don't know why I'm so specifically passionate about this weird. It's a weird and I will admit it's an old man mindset. And I will totally give that to everybody. I could be proven wrong on this. This isn't something. Listen, dude. I'll tell you when I'm wrong. I've been wrong so many times on this damn channel. I'll tell you when I'm wrong. You got to prove it to me because right now it still seems that exclusives sell systems, and I think Nintendo's about to prove that to us all. I don't know if the Switch 2 will be revealed before this recording goes out, but
Mhm.
I, I can almost guarantee you in a few months' time when that bad boy is rolled out and it's selling like hotcakes, that that's going to be your answer.
And here's what I'm going to love. By the end of 2025, if you get a Switch 2 or whatever it's called, and that becomes your favorite console and you love all the exclusives on top of your third party, that's going to be the coolest day for me in the world to hear that, because you'll have proven that point that it's about that. So it'd just be funny if the Nintendo Switch 2 becomes your best favorite thing ever by the end of 2025 for those
And,
reasons alone. Creativity, they're proving it to you, Nintendo proves it to you, etc. So
and listen, that's the thing is like I could go around a million different times. I gotta hop out of here, but
yeah, let's
it,
hop
it
out.
I'll say this before I go. Nintendo doesn't cater to me, and that's the thing that like I I feel like we're eating pretty good with PlayStation and Xbox. It's not a total dour bummer thing. You know what I mean? I'll always prefer a PlayStation and an Xbox over a Nintendo. I always will because I don't, I'm not a Mario guy. I'm not a Zelda guy. Like I want to play your dark AAA stuff and then like that's more of where I lean. Um, but it the market is going to speak. The market is going to speak. And if I promise you, if I'm wrong about this and the Switch 2 doesn't come out selling gangbuster numbers, I'll say, hey, I was wrong. And it's happened before, like you said, the Wii U and the
Yeah.
GameCube, and usually it happens in waves. We get the 64 into the GameCube. We get the Wii into the Wii U. We have the Switch. Is the Switch 2 going to flop? I could be wrong, but I think
Who
if they
knows?
come out and we see Mario Odyssey 2 and we see Smash Brothers, what Mario Kart, those systems are going to be flying off the shelves, and people are going to have to ask themselves, why isn't the ROG Ally flying off the shelf? Why isn't the Steam Deck flying off the shelf? And it's because they don't have Mario and they don't have Zelda and they don't have Smash and they. Anywho, we can
Yep.
go on forever.
Nope, you hit it on the head. So we'll wrap it up there. I think Brandon's got a jet, but that was a good conversation. So at the end of the day, spend your own money how you want to spend it, but just do your research, think about it, think about where you're going to put your time and effort into, and hopefully we at least gave a little bit of fun, informative, enjoyable insight into this. And at the end of the day, we just love games, so we're going to keep playing games on all the places. So
Oh yeah.
that's the point, really. Wherever there's fun experiences, we will go.
Absolutely. Just fun to look back at the span of the generation so far, give our mid-gen report cards. I know it might have sounded a little bit negative, but I don't feel overly positive about what either console manufacturer is doing to sell the system, so they're getting a negative grade. That is what it is.
Yep.
Jeffrey, appreciate you for joining me, my brother, and I shall be seeing you soon to do some more recording, and I shall be seeing you good people very soon. Take it easy, guys. See you very soon. Goodbye.
Bye bye.